exam this week. The take-home portion is already up on As You Learn. And then the in-class portion is on Friday, during your regularly scheduled time. On As You Learn, if you notice, there's another link, because I wanted just one link for the exam because I have some students from other classes taking it at different times. So they may be coming into my 3 o'clock class or my noon class. So it will be this link here. What I'll do is I'll hide these other links, so there's only one. It says exam link. So if you need to take it at another time, please let me know ahead of time. But I do have a class at noon. I have a class at 2, and I have a class at 3. Well, probably anytime between 11 and the 3 o'clock will work. But if for some reason something has come up, please let me know ahead of time if you need to take it at a different time. Under week 4 is an outline. There's 2 attendance problems, and they have to be done by Thursday night, simply because they're making sure you understand cheating and when the exam is and things like that. So you write it word for word and then attach it, so I know you know what the rules are. Can we take the okay, so you can take it earlier, and if you need to take it on Thursday with sports or something, let me know and we can do that also. Pictures. Yes, just like you do your attendance work, you either take a picture or scan it, you'll do the same thing. So you'll have the test in front of you. Here's the take-home one. You don't have to write your answers inside here. You can have a separate piece of paper and number it 1 and put your answers number 2. If you go out of order, that is fine. Just make sure they're numbered so I can see which is which easily. So take home and in class, you will just take pictures or scan them and put them up on the computer. If you do want to take it earlier, you can. You have to stay on camera the entire time. So it logs, I can have it log when you log off of Zoom, and I also know what time your assignment was submitted. And so you just want to make sure you are on Zoom until after you've submitted it. Okay, so yes, there is a review. A couple students asked me, normally what I do is I have all of the My Math Lab problems printed out, and I tell you which ones are on the in-class ones. But a couple students asked about having review problems, so I just moved those over to a review section. But it's not for a grade. It's up to you if you want to do it. I recommend going in there, and you could keep asking it for another problem. That way it gives you different numbers and you can practice it even more. But it's not for a grade. You can use Desmos as your calculator. There's not much you're going to need a calculator for, except maybe plugging in a couple numbers into an equation. You will not have to graph on the in-class portion of the exam because different students' computers go at different speeds, and to be going onto a computer program and back and forth. I didn't think that was fair for a 50-minute exam. So you will not need to do any of the graphing on the in-class portion. It's on the take-home portion. And if you noticed, if you've looked at it already, it was put up Saturday. There's 2 that have a scatter plot, but that's on the take-home portion. You can also have a formula sheet if you want. So as we're going over problems today, if there's formulas that you want to write down, I can't think of any that you would need right now, but if there is one, you can write it down. Maybe y equals mx plus b, what the slope and the y-intercept is, something like that. Yeah, slope equation of the line.
So the in-class portion, it's 5 questions, correct?
Yep.
Is it multi-part questions or just one-part questions?
Yeah, there's multiple, kind of like this one has 2 parts, or this
Okay.
one 3.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
So there's 4 problems that you have to work out that could have 2 to 3 steps. Like 1, you find the marginal profit and then find the equation of the profit. So it would have 2 parts to it. So there's 4 problems you work out, and then there's 1 problem that's got 5 parts on it, but it's just fill in, like, if you have a scatter plot where all the points are spread out all over, what does r squared equal? If you have a vertical line at the point 2, 5, what's the equation? Is a parabola a function? So there's short little questions where you just put 1 word or an equation. That's 1 problem, 5 parts. But that should not take long. That should take you no more than at the most a minute each. Because as long as you understand it, you should be able to write the answer right after you read the equation or sentence. If you have a horizontal line, what is the slope? So there's little questions like that, and there's 5. Any questions on that? I mean, we're going to go over the in-class part today. You can kind of see I started it down here. If you look at the review problems from my math lab that I put up there, I put these 2, number 1 and number 2 are similar to one of the problems on the exam, but I put 2 so you can practice. 3 and 4 are similar to one of the problems. Number 5 is similar to a problem, and number 6. Then the other ones that are in there are practice for these. Any questions before we start reviewing? So there's only 4 actual problems that you work out, and then 1 where you're just putting their 1-word answers or an equation. I figure at most 10 points each, 40. And then if you took 2 minutes each here, another 50. But these should not take more than 5 minutes each, and this should not take this should take less than 5 minutes. Any questions? Okay, now the take-home portion is due on Sunday. Okay. First. So these are on my math lab. It says review for exam 1, not for grade. And you can always say, ask for another, and it'll give you different numbers. The one on the test will ask for marginal profit and then profit equation. So it'll have two parts, A, B. A company charting its profit notices that the relationship between the number of units sold and the profit is linear. If 200 units results in, now notice this is your X and Y. So you can think of them as a point. 200 units gives us $4,736 profit, and 275 units is 9761. So you can think of it as a point. Marginal profit. Marginal, when you're talking about a line, is your slope. Remember, that's y2. Look how blurry it is. Y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Oops, I'm gonna go get it. Since I wrote y2 first. Now, if you went this way, this one first minus this one, then make sure you go this one minus this one. You have to keep them together. So you really only need a basic calculator for the in-class portion. So the marginal profit is 67. The profit equation, remember equation of the line? Well, now we have a slope, and we could use either one of the 2 points and plug it in. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. For your formula sheet, you might want to write this one in it. And this. You can use either one of the 2 points. I'm going to use this one because it's smaller. Y minus y1 equals my slope, which is 67 times x minus 200. And then just solve for y. Distribute the 67. And add the 4,736 to the other side. Any questions on that?
No, ma'am.
So there's one problem like that, and number 2 on here is similar too, so we'll do it. Instead of profit, it's cost, but it's the same steps. So marginal cost is your slope. The company finds it can produce 15 heaters for $4,000 and 25 heaters for $6,200. So this is cost. That's my Y. And this is heaters. X. So first thing, find the marginal cost. Remember, marginal cost is your slope. Slope is Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. So if we subtract those, we get 2,200 divided by 10. 220. So our marginal cost is 220. Any questions on that? Yes. You always want to put your answer in y equals mx plus b. Because then this was profit, it could go P of X equals 67X minus 8664. But everyone's is going to look the same if you solve for Y. If we don't solve for Y, then you could have put the other point here and everything looks different. But it's still the same equation. Any questions on that? Yeah, so that's another formula you might want to write down. Y equals mx plus b is point slope form. So that would be 1, and then there's point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. There's slope intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. M is your slope, B is your y-intercept. What I'll do is I'll keep adding formulas as I say them on here, and then at the end, when we're done reviewing everything, I'll put it back up so you could take a picture. Or you could start your formula sheet too. So marginal cost was 220 to find the cost equation. We use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then you plug in. Now you can pick either point. I'll probably use this one. Numbers are smaller, lots of zeros. But both will give you the same answer. So we have y minus 4,000 equals the 220, x minus 15. Distribute. Distributing, I get 220x minus 3,300. And then add the 4,000 to the other side. $220x plus 700. Any questions on that one?
No, ma'am.
Okay, number 3. The number of banks in the country for selected years from 1980 to 2009 is given by y equals a negative 376.7x plus 18,831, where x is the number of years after 1980. And y is the number of banks. In what year would the number of banks be 7,153? Well, here they're giving us the number of banks. Y is the number of banks, so we put that in for Y. So you want to see what variable they're giving you and what they're looking for. They're looking for the year, and they're giving us the number of banks. So we're putting 7153 in for the number of banks. And then we solve for x. Any questions on why I plugged it in where I did? We're trying to solve for x, so we want to get x by itself. That means we need to get rid of this first. So first we get this term by itself. Since we're adding the 18,000, subtract it. Because what you do, you always want to do the opposite, and what you do to one side, you do to the other. So when you subtract them, you should get a negative 11,678 minus the 376.7x. Now the terms by itself get the x by itself by getting rid of the number in front of it. This is multiplied, so to get rid of it, I can divide. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay, so we get this. Is everyone getting 31? Now go back and look at the question. When you get an answer, 31, oh, I'm done. It's 31 years. But they didn't want the number of years. They wanted to know what year it is, not how many years. So they want to know in what year. We got 31, rounding to the whole number. It's 31 years after 1980. So from 1980, if I add 31 years, oops, I get 2011. So the year was 2011. You want to be careful of your units and always check that. So on the test, there'll be one either where you get X and then you have to find the year, or I wrote a little note in here. How many banks were there in 2020? So it'll either be one way or another. I want to make sure you know how to change units. If it's written this way and we're looking for the number of banks, that means we're looking for Y. Let me write the problem. So to find X, we know it's the number of years after 1980. So to find X, we would take the year we're in, 2020, and subtract 1980. So X would be 40. Then you just plug in 40 for X. So there's 3,763 banks in the year 2020. Any questions on that? Okay, number 3 that we just did, and number 4 are combined in a problem. So it's just asking you questions and making sure you know where to plug things in. The profit from the production and problem there. The profit from the production and sales of specialty golf paths is given by the function P of X equals 20X minus 1,000, where X is the number of hats sold, produced and sold. And profit, if they do not say, then profits in dollars. Producing and selling how many hats will give a profit of 7,000. So just like the one before, you're given an equation and you need to know where to plug things in. If we're given a profit of 7,000, will we plug it in for P of X or X? Anyone? Producing and selling how many hats? That means we're looking for the number of hats, and the number of hats is X. So the profit is going here. 7,000. So the profit's 7,000. And then you just solve for X. We want to get the term by itself first. So to get 20X by itself, since you're subtracting 1,000, you need to add it. And then since you're multiplying by the 20 to get rid of it, divide. So 400 hats, if we produce and sell 400 hats, we will make a profit of $7,000. Any questions on that? To avoid a loss, how many hats must be produced and sold? So if we have a profit function and we want to know how many we need to sell to avoid a loss, how do we solve that? Anyone? You can set it greater than 0 or equal to 0. You don't want to plug it in for X though, because notice we're looking for the number of hats. So if our profit is at 0, then we are not at a loss. So either greater than 0 or equal 0. So if my profit is equal to 0, I am no longer at a loss. This is the break even quantity. This is where you break even. Add the 1,000 to the other side. And divide by 20. So in order to no longer be at a loss, you need to sell 50 hats. Any questions on that one? Pause it.
So we equal it to 0 every time.
Yes. So you'd set it equal to 0 and solve. And this is part B was to avoid a loss.
Okay, thank you.
So this problem has two parts. One is definitely to avoid a loss, and then 2 will be plugging in whether it's plugging in for Y or X, similar to 3 and 4. So similar to one of these. Any questions on that?
No, ma'am.
Number 5. A manufacturer of automobile air conditioners has total revenue R equals 138.50x and total costs given by C equal to 35.20x plus 12,809, where X is the number of units produced and sold. Okay, and it says to use a non-graphical method, which you You have to use a non-graphical method for these ones. You'll have to show your work, but it's up to you if you want to use substitution or elimination. But it says to find the number of units needed for the manufacturer to break even. When you're trying to break even, that's the same thing as making sure you're not at a loss. When you have profit, you just set it equal to 0. But when you have revenue and cost to find your break even, you can set them equal to each other. Because if the amount you bring in and the amount it costs you to get it is the same, you broke even, you're not at a loss. So for break even, when you have revenue and cost, you set them equal to each other. Okay. I wanted to make sure I had just put quantity. So it's the break even quantity. We set them equal to each other and solve. Now, on the test, I asked for the break-even quantity, but then I ask you to tell me what it means. So first we'll find it. We have two terms with an X and then a constant. So we want to get the two X terms together. That means we want to move this one to the left. So we'll subtract it. Just making sure I subtracted it. Okay, we want to get X by itself, so we'll divide. And what do we get? Getting 124. When 124 units are produced and sold, the company is no longer at a loss. They broke even. So something that you tells me you know what the word break even means. It means they're no longer at a loss or they no longer owe money. This is where they will start making money. So anything like that that lets me know you understand the word break even. No longer at a loss, where they start making money. Any questions on that? So this one has 3 parts. One is the break even, but then there's 2 more just to make sure that you understand when you should plug things in. Like, what is the revenue when 150 units are sold. Well, we know we're using revenue, so we'd use the revenue equation. And we said 150 units are sold. X is the number of units. So I want to make sure you know which equation you should use and where you should plug it. So in this case, then we plug it in here. We're using the revenue equation because it asked for revenue. It gave the number of units, and that is X. So when 150 units are produced and sold, we will make a revenue of 20,750. Any questions on that? I had one more. When the cost is 16,329.20, how many units can be produced? So first think about which equation you're using. Well, it said when the cost is, so that tells me I'm using my cost equation. I'll write it down here so you could see it together. So we chose the cost equation because cost is in the sentence. The cost is 16,329. How many units are produced? How many units? That tells me I'm looking for X because X was number of units. Cost is this, so that's going to be our cost. So it goes in for C. And then you solve. So it's just making sure you understand which equation to use when. Subtract this to the other side to get X by itself. Right. And then we divide 35.2. And we get 100. So with the $16,329, we can produce 100 units. Any questions on that?
If
So
that was
there's
a
a
death,
problem like that with the 3 parts.
if that was a decimal for that question, will we round down?
Yes, if this would have been a decimal, we'd have to round down. in this chapter, everything seems to be integers right now, so if it doesn't come out to an integer, you probably did something wrong. I think the next chapter where we find profit by taking revenue minus cost, then they get more into having the decimals, but right now everything's been coming out a perfect integer. When you're looking for X anyways, money's different, but yes, if this were a decimal, you'd round down. You don't have enough to make another one. Any other questions? So profit or revenue, when you're looking for units, you have to round up or you won't hit it. Cost, you have to drop the decimal. Okay, last actual workout problem, number 6. So this is like one of the 4. I don't remember what order they're in. The demand for a certain product is given by P plus 5Q equals 415. And the supply of the product, P minus 5Q equals 65. Where P is price and Q is the number of products. Find the price at which the quantity demand equals the quantity supplied, and then find the equilibrium quantity. On the test, I just put find the equilibrium point. Now, you could solve them both for P, put them equal to each other, solve. But the way they're written, notice if we use elimination, the Q's are going to drop out. So for equilibrium point, you need to solve where the two intersect. If I add down, P plus P is 2P. This cancels. 0, 6, 7, 8, 480. You divide by 2. P equals 240. So the price we would sell them for is 240 each product. Now, when you have an equilibrium point, it's quantity and price. It is one of the few that are not in alphabetical order. X, Y, A, B, cosine and sine. But quantity is an X value, price is a Y. To find the other, you can plug it into either equation. I'm going to plug into the top one because it's positive. So I'll put my 240 plus 5Q equals 415. Subtract the 240. $175 and divide by 5. So you need to find Q and P. It will say equilibrium point. It's up to you if you want to write them together or if just write them both separately. You could just circle them both, or you can put them as a point. Any questions on that? Okay, this is an elimination. When I add down, this is eliminated. So that's how elimination works. You want one to be positive and one to be negative, so then when you combine down or add down, something drops out. The other one I did would kind of be substitution, because I'm substituting them for R, where'd I put it? Here it is. This would be R equals C. We're substituting it in. Yeah, but this is your elimination process. So the one on the take home, number 2, you have to solve it graphically using Desmos. And you also have to solve it with elimination. So that would be getting a value so that one of the variables will drop out. And the last one, substitution, solve, like this one, maybe solve it for X and plug it into the other equation. Any questions on this one? So we did the 4 main problems on the test. We did a couple versions of the 4 main problems on the test. The other ones we'll go over at the beginning. First thing, those little short ones to make sure you understand them. And then I will take any questions you have on here. Also, when you're working on these, if you have a question or if you want to make sure you have the right idea of what to do, send me a picture and ask, am I on the right track? You're going to find some of these problems on the Quizlet or can't think of the math one right now, but you'll also see my comments in there about what's wrong, and to go talk to me. So be careful on those. Any questions?
So those ones we just went through are the are the ones that are going to be for the in class.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So the ones we just did, number 1 and 2, those are similar. Those are like one problem. I just wanted you to have more practice. 3 and 4 are like another one. And then 5 and 6. So this is one problem, 2, 3, 4. That are on the in-class portion.
Could I see the number 6 one worked out again? Sorry.
Mhm. Any other questions?
And you said there were only 5 questions just with multiple parts.
Yes.
Okay.
4 of them are what we did today. And then there's a group of them that, here, let me see, there's some on here too. This one's on the take home. Oh, this one was just function, but there'll be 1 or 2 questions like this. Is a circle a function? Looking at this equation, what is the slope? Y equals the -6 is what type of line? This one's just asking function, but the one on the test will ask a little bit
And on
different.
Wednesday, will there be another review?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
So tomorrow, we'll review what those short answer questions, stuff to make sure you know, and then I'll take any other questions. The exam, if you do have friends and want to work together, that's up to you. If you don't have people in the class, you can text me questions, or email me. And we will review more on Wednesday. Have a nice day.
Thanks.